Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode here on An Cluiche. This is another interview in our interview series, and for this one I am joined by the first woman to ever lift the Brendan Martin Cup from Dublin, Denise Masterson. This is interview 13 here on the channel. Denise, thanks so much for taking time out of your day. How's the form? How have you been?
Great, yeah, no problem at all. Delighted to chat to you. Yeah,
Good
all
stuff.
good.
Well, we're fresh off the back of a fantastic year for Dublin. I mean, double All-Ireland winners on both the women's side and the men's side, 2 All-Ireland finals, and beat Kerry twice in a final, so not bad going. Were you at both games, and what did you make of both performances?
Yeah, I was at both games. I suppose for both of them, maybe, they weren't being back to the start of the year. Particularly, I suppose, the ladies probably struggling in that in the league. So for me, it was probably one of their best All-Ireland wins yet, considering, that people had probably written them off. And to be honest, I thought Kerry were looking really good for an All-Ireland as well. But the performance the girls pulled out of the bag on the day, and with some of the young girls coming in, all of a sudden you were thinking, God, things are still looking quite good for Dublin. Now all depends again on who they lose this year. I think Jennifer Dunn, and that would be huge. But I thought it was a super performance by them this year. I was really, really impressed in the All Ireland final. I felt they really answered a lot of people's questions.
No, that's it. And a lot of people were talking about the fact that Kerry had beaten Dublin in Parnell Park, and would that translate again? My thing was, before the game, I was saying, if we can get the pace right, if we can get the ball into Jennifer Dunn, Caoimhe O'Connor, Orla Nolan, and get them running at the Kerry defence, I think we could stretch them a lot more than we could in Parnell Park. And the fact as well that Louise, for example, if you can keep her far away from the goal, which I think Leah Caffrey did really, really well in that game, she would be less of a threat, because I think part of it for Louise is that she's so good at holding position quite close to the goal. She's so good at being right in the danger zone the minute she gets the ball. Croke Park, the field is so big that it can be quite difficult, especially when Kerry are boxed in. It can be difficult to hold your position high up the field, and I think that was another key asset.
Oh yeah, and look, Jennifer Dunn was, like they didn't have her in Parnell Park. But for me, that Dublin Kerry game in Parnell Park was like one of the best ladies football games I think I've kind of experienced, in terms of the aggression and the aggro on the pitch and on the line and stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. But I think Jennifer Dunn for me was a key player missing that day, and I thought she was outstanding in the All Ireland final. But just to say about Louise, I don't know how she does it. Is this her 16th year? And like the football the girl plays, I think she's absolutely phenomenal, and I just think Kerry are just a little bit naive defensively, maybe. And like you said, I think Croke Park being bigger made it a much bigger challenge for them against Dublin, But in fairness, I don't think they would have been expecting that performance from Dublin either, But no, like I said, looking very promising. However, I do think Jennifer Dunn's loss in the middle of the park is absolutely huge, depending how her AFL career goes.
Oh, that's massive.
Yeah.
Because she was the outball. When Kerry did push up, Dublin gave it to Jennifer Dunn more often than not, and she often got Dublin out of trouble. So her being gone is huge. And like, genuinely, I think she's the best midfielder in the country. I don't think that's an exaggeration to say.
No, yeah.
So you wouldn't fancy a crack at marking Jennifer Dunn then, if you were still playing at the height of your
It's
career?
really funny. It was lovely in 2019. I was at kind of a function after the girls had won the All Ireland, and Jennifer came up to me and she showed me this picture. Well, we'd won the All Ireland in 2010. I'd gone out to Coola, and I think she might have been under 10 or 11 at the time, and we got this picture of me presenting her with a medal, and she still had this picture, and she showed it to me, and she's a tiny little thing. And then we got a new picture of us in 2019, and she's towering over me. So just the change in her from 2010 to 2019, from a 10, 11-year-old to a 19, 20-year-old, I just looked older and smaller. But she had changed so dramatically as an athlete, and she was towering over me. So I don't know. Now, look, I'd never shy away from anything. I'd give anything a go in the middle of the park. But no, definitely Jennifer Dunn would be some woman to try and keep tabs on.
100%. And it's only getting better and better. Like, the standard has gone up and up. I thought genuinely this season it was one of the most open championships I'd seen, because I think if you're looking, particularly on the ladies' side, if you're looking at that, going back the last 20 years, it's dynasties. You've got Dublin, then you've got Cork, then you've got Waterford, Mayo. Like, it's been rare that it's changed hands quite a lot. It tends to be one team, and then even Meath putting back-to-back championships there.
Yeah.
But this year, Meath didn't look to me like they were going to win it. And then you're looking at Kerry, Dublin, Cork coming strong, Mayo and Galway from the west. Armagh are always a threat when they have Mackin at full force. Like, it felt as open. I still think that's the case for next year. I still look at it and think, geez, if Dublin lose Jennifer Dunn, I don't think we're as strong anywhere. That's an obvious statement, but I don't think we're anywhere near as strong if we have Jennifer Dunn missing. So I think it could be just as open again next season.
Oh, definitely. I would agree with you. And I think Kerry have to be, 2 years in a row, they have to be looking at, their game plan, maybe, like I said, in terms of defensively or that. But, everyone improves year on year, and those gaps are changing all the time. But yeah, it was definitely the most open season, hardest to call. And I do think it'll be the same again next year. Definitely. Yeah. Be interesting to see where Meath go, though, because they really struggled now.
Yeah.
It looks like they have a lot going on there.
Well, that's it. And look, if Vicky's gone, that's the trickiest one. And last word on that All-Ireland final, I mean, one of the best finishes to the game. I think you could even imagine, like, Carla Rowe to slot that point with 1 second left on the clock.
Yeah.
Literally couldn't write that stuff. But to go back to your own career, you had a different route into Gaelic football than a lot of people would. You were playing basketball, and netball, you were saying to me just off air before we started the interview, and came in playing with Ballymun Kickhams as a method of staying fit during the off season. How did that first come about? Did you have friends that were in the club that said you should come and try out? Or?
Yeah, it was actually so by chance. I think I was walking down the road and I bumped into a friend of mine, and he was asking me, "Are you still playing basketball?" I said, "Well, sure, it's the off season now, so kind of nearly looking for something to do." And he said, "Well, Ballymun have set up a ladies team." He said, "Would you come up with us?" And I said, "Sure, I'd give it a go." Like, I rocked up in a pair of basketball boots and basketball shorts. Like, I was completely, don't get me wrong, I'd been in Croke Park with my dad on numerous occasions, like we would have followed. But in terms of ladies football, no, it was completely new to me, So I went up and I absolutely loved it. And I was probably relatively fit from basketball, like yourself, like, and good hands maybe. So I just loved it. But like, the more I got into it, it nearly took over then everything in terms of all the sports. Still loved playing basketball in the off season, and I really thought fitness wise it stood to me. But it became all consuming then. But that I was about 23 then. So like I said, when I'm coaching young girls or you're out with young girls, like the opportunities they have now and how it's all come on and developed in all aspects of their game, like that wasn't the route I had, which maybe makes it easier to understand the type of player I was. I was just a workhorse, really, you know what I mean? So but yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. And how was the feet skills when you went? Because that's one of my things, is that I feel like for people that come in from basketball, it's very hand-eye kind of based. I feel like the feet skills, did it take long to get used to kind of, on top of that as well, like I've played basketball and I play basketball in Gaelic football. Whenever I have a sustained period playing basketball only, and then whenever I go back to Gaelic football, whenever somebody tackles me or actually like puts their hand on my arm, you do have the instinct to be like a ref, you're not allowed to do that. But how did you find picking up the new skill set?
Well, it's funny you say that, actually, because I used to find sometimes, I was probably a small enough basketball player as well, but like I liked to try and get in and rebound and stuff. And like I used to find under the basket, like I'd probably come out with a few more, elbows to the face, or like I would have found the contact in basketball.
Non-contact.
Yeah, like I would have found that maybe in midfield as well, it's not like a tight corner back mark and somebody. Don't get me wrong, there were hits, but I would never have felt that there was a huge difference in the physicality between basketball and football. Like, I suppose, again, in basketball, I love defending. I love being up in people's faces. So there would have been a little bit of me rolling around the floor a little bit in basketball. So probably in terms of that physical contact, it was never a big step up or change for me, particularly not in the middle of the park. And I loved contact anyway, but the actual foot skills, I mean, in terms of footwork and vision and your understanding of a game, I think basketball is huge. And I actually think it's one of the reasons why I enjoyed centre back or midfield so much in basketball or in football, because I do think you take a lot from basketball. As regards my kicking, I tried to work in it a lot, but you see, I suppose when I went from playing with Ballymun Kickham's, we might be in Division 7 or 8 at the time, and I managed to make the junior team, the Dublin junior team, maybe that same year, and was called up to the senior team. So, I was just trying to keep up. So in terms of working on weak side and all of that, it really, in training, it didn't really happen if I was to keep up with the pace of the training session. So like looking back on it now, I would love to have done it differently in terms of being a really rounded, developed player. But look, I think what I did, I knew what my limitations were and I knew what my strengths were, and I certainly played to them, And I do think basketball provided a lot of strengths, but certainly that I hadn't played underage, my kicking skills would not have been. I wouldn't have been the one they were looking to free up to score a winning point by any stretch.
Yeah, well, that's it. Is that like you said it there yourself perfectly? Like you noticed what you were good at, and that's the case. Like how many people have we seen come from basketball, rugby, football, and like they're not traditional Gaelic footballers in the sense, but they're fantastic athletes and they're able to slot in once they pick up the skills. Like you're on a list there with like Kieran Donaghy, Michael Dara McCauley, all these other lads that played basketball, were really good at it, and made the switch over. And obviously Donaghy's gone back. Donaghy's still playing basketball today. So you said that 2003 was when you were telling me off air that you started kind of floating around the team. And then 2004 was your first year into the team. Now, that was coming into a team that was fresh off an All-Ireland final defeat to Mayo. And that was a Mayo side with the likes of Cora Staunton in it. So obviously not an easy team to beat. But you were coming into a Dublin team that was fresh off the back of an All-Ireland final defeat. Like that was some absolute legends of Dublin GAA in that team. But like, what was it like coming into the dressing room as someone that, as you said, came into Gaelic football late? Like, did you feel like, how am I here already, or was it a little bit kind of bit surreal?
Probably none of the above, because I hadn't it wasn't something I had ever imagined I would do. So it wasn't something I was striving to do, or making a Dublin panel was never you see girls now and from under 14, 15, like it's all they want to do is play for Dublin. So looking back on it, I probably didn't realise at the time what a privileged position I was in. And I just loved playing and I loved competing, and probably even coming up against other teams, I didn't know anybody. I remember one day getting a man marking job on Adele Concannon, from Galway, who would have been a big player for them. She literally, she meant nothing to me. So there was a certain amount, I suppose, of naivety, or a lot less pressure, to be honest. Even now, look, when I say I was on the panel in 2004, I wouldn't have been a starter or anything like that, but I did get picked to be part of the match day squad for the 2004 All-Ireland final, because we would have carried players. So, players would have been dropped, but I was one of the ones picked, which was huge. But when I think of it, I was sitting on the bench saying, please put me in, please put me in. I felt I could have done a job. Probably when I had more experience 10 years later, I wouldn't have been as confident or as carefree in the sense of, but so probably in ways coming into it late made it easier being thrown into the Dublin setup. I was just competing and I was just loving playing. I was loving the training. I was loving the whole team ethos. I was loving representing Dublin, but there wasn't any pressure, and I certainly had no pressure on myself. This was never anything that I had aspired to do. So every single day that I was there, I was just enjoying, So it's funny how it probably got much more serious. Roll on to 2009 All Ireland, and I would have been so nervous going in on the bus, or whereas in 2004 it was just, I was just enjoying, happy out, not really overly concerned one way or the other.
Which one do you think it's better to be? If you were to throw yourself back in, would you want to have the mindset you had in 2004, or would you want to have the mindset you had in 2009?
Oh, 2009. Even it being, it was much more serious than that. But it meant a lot more to me. The squad meant a lot more to me. It was a much more.
You probably played better as well.
Oh yeah, look, I would have been a lot fitter. I probably, physically would have been very different in terms of. Sorry, it's my ring doorbell. I would have been very I would have been very committed and focused at that time, and it would have been a huge honor. Like, so all of that stuff that I maybe missed in 2004 with being carefree and naive, and I think that stuff is really important as well in terms of the bonds you're building or representing, and there would have been a much bigger following, I suppose, in ladies GAA, so it was probably a bigger event as well.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like, look, the crowds, if you look at it on Wikipedia, even like if you look at the crowd numbers, they took a steep rise up until the present day. Like, how did it feel to be in that? Were you aware of that as well? Like, as you were playing, were you aware that now there was more and more people watching
We were
year on year? Were you aware that you were part? That's pretty much the question. But like, were you aware that you were part of the generation that was growing the game?
No, not really at the time. I'm not sure. We were probably, the tail end of my career was probably at the start of that, really. Like, even if you look at 2009 and 2010, even compared to maybe 2014, which was the last All-Ireland final I was in, which is just a wonderful memory altogether, that great day against Cork again. But like from today to then, it still poles apart in terms of numbers and the publicity and the exposure it gets, I suppose. So definitely from 2004 to 2010, it had changed, but the shift was, it nearly was an exponential rise. Then maybe from 2013, 14 on, I would feel it even changed more. So I probably don't feel we were, and maybe we were, maybe I think us winning the All-Ireland in 2010 probably did catapult it a bit more in Dublin anyway. I'm sure down in Cork they would have seen it differently with the success that they had. But for us in Dublin, I suppose 2010, we would have to say, must have, garnered more interest, given that it was the first All-Ireland that we'd ever won.
Yeah, without doubt. And like, you have to put it in the context of the time as well. Dublin were desperate for an All-Ireland and anything at the time. Dublin hadn't won an All-Ireland in 16 years.
Yeah.
15 years at the time. They hadn't won it since 1995 and had been heartbreakingly knocked out by Cork on the men's side in the All-Ireland semi-final. And then Hughes went and won that final. But we'll get to that. 2009, you did say you made the final and you ran into that Cork team. And we were talking like that was, I personally think, it's the greatest team of all time. Like I know Dublin won 6 in a row on the men's side. They're the greatest team on the men's side. But Cork won 11 All-Ireland in 12 seasons. And as I was saying to you off air, it was all the same players. It was all Rena Buckley, Breed Stack, Valerie Mulcahy, Juliet Murphy. They were all there for pretty much all of them. And 2009, like, going into that game, you've seen these girls win title after title after title after title. What's the mindset like going in playing against a champion like that? Was the management kind of like, what? How do you even prepare? Like, I don't even know really how to structure the question. How do you prepare for champions like that?
Like, we'd encountered Cork in league games as well, and we liked playing against Cork, to be honest. Now, at that time, it's funny, like, they would have been a team that got bodies behind the ball, and we were probably maybe too slow moving it in previous games, but we had done a lot of work and all of that stuff. And, we never felt that they, like in All Ireland's, Cork never beat us by a lot of points. And, in a lot of these games, we were up and threw it away. And like you're talking about that group of girls, like, their bond was phenomenal. And their respect for each other and their respect for their management was absolutely huge. And I think they just had a winning mentality. And we hadn't got that at that stage, maybe. Their substitutions that they made always were effective, always. There were some players they'd bring on and, they might get a goal, they'd get a few points. Like, their substitutions were always really effective. They had such a good understanding maybe of what was going on the pitch. They had such experience. But I'd know a couple of the girls now, and still you'd see that the bonds that they had, that group, and the respect they had for their manager. And it just goes to show how much can be said for that in terms of, they would have done anything for each other on the pitch, and they had that winning mentality. And sometimes I don't know if that was what beat us in the end, particularly in games where we were 10, 11 points up and they came back and beat us, for the last 10 minutes of the game. So there has to be a psychology in that, because I don't think we could have got that bad for the last 10 minutes or them that good. It was like we just capitulated, but I think also they were never beaten. And I suppose it's really hard to keep going against a team who never think they are beaten. And that was the mentality of those girls. Like, they were phenomenal. Probably some of, never mind the team, the individuals within it are probably some of the best players that ever played in terms of their commitment and their mentality and their football. So yeah, good few regrets looking back on those All Irelands as well, but we were never intimidated, or like we relished it, like we enjoyed playing them, never enjoyed the results ever, but the Dublin team, after I left, I suppose, got to put those wrongs right. And it's funny now, because Cork wouldn't really be their nemesis at all, because they would have such a much more successful record against Cork now than Cork would against them. So it's just funny how those cycles change all the time. But to answer your question, sorry, in a very long-winded way, and no, we enjoyed playing them. We would have enjoyed beating them, but we loved going out to play Cork. We enjoyed the rivalry.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always interesting to see if dominant champions can finally be beaten. And I think when you're talking about that, the bond that they had, the respect they had for the management, like even if you meet any of the Cork, like I'm privileged enough to meet the likes of Bridge Stack, and when you talk to them about the coaches that they had, you can still see it, like they have such respect for them, and they really appreciate everything that the coaches did to make that setup as nice as it was, and then obviously as successful as it was. They had that factor. I remember watching them in games, particularly the 2014 game. I remember watching them and just being like, they just have, like, I remember Alex Ferguson said this famous quote about Manchester United, that he said, the fact that we're called Manchester United gets us 12 points a season.
Yeah.
Because teams get 1-0 up and then panic.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking, oh God, we're playing Manchester. I feel like Cork had that.
Yeah.
The teams, if you look back through the years, Monaghan as well, there were stages where teams had them. Like, they had them, and Cork just start tiptoeing back in, and all of a sudden top class players would start making mistakes. And just like on that, like I was talking to you about your rise up, like obviously it's most likely from Cork, but you never know, you might have a surprise there. Who was the first, in your memory anyway, the first player that you ran into that was like, God, she's good, or I can't seem to get the ball off her, or
it was actually playing
like,
junior
she
football.
keeps losing?
Yeah, it was actually when I was playing football for
Yeah.
the Dublin junior team. We came up against Kildare and Brianne Leahy, who is a senior player all day long, really, but Kildare were in the junior championship with us then. And it was her fitness, and it's a different fitness. Like I said, I used to think basketball, had me relatively fit coming back, but it was her stamina in the middle of the park. Like, I remember thinking, oh my God, like, does she not stop? Like, she was up and down and up and down. And that for me was the first time when I thought, okay, I need to really up what I'm doing, or, I have to push harder, because it was her fitness, her ball control, and she was such she was the real fulcrum of the team in the middle of the park. And look, we would have come up against Kildare then later in senior championships, and like, she was always a really good player, but definitely I felt that I had improved. I suppose I was always going to being so new to the game then, like I had improved a lot more, and I would have been happy then with my standing beside her, but those first games when I played against her junior, oh my God, like, she was phenomenal, like, as an athlete. And like I said, she was a senior quality player, like I wouldn't have come up against much better than her playing senior football. She was a super, super player, but more her athleticism and for that particular role in the middle of the park. So yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, Brianne Lee, he was the fourth player when I thought, oh wow, I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I have an interesting question that's just popped into my head. If you could transfer one of the Cork girls over to the Dublin team, like any of those Cork players on that team, which one would you take first? Like, who was the one that you were like, oh God, I have to play against her?
Well, obviously I would have been up against Juliette Murphy in the middle of the park. Oh look, Reece, that it depends for the reason. You'd like a lot of them in your squad for the sheer crack and nice
Yeah.
people. But then there's Valerie Mulcahy for banging in the goals. You could have done with her in your squad. So I suppose it would depend for what Angela Walsh was so solid in the full back line. And I absolutely love Geraldine O'Flynn. She was a wing back for them. And obviously Bree Stack centre back. Sure, look, you could have had your pick of them. They'd quality everywhere. Deirdre O'Reilly, they'd quality everywhere. But I suppose Valerie Mulcahy, in terms of her, you'd have to admire that kind of confidence in herself, backing herself, going for goal, going for the scores, and we would have she would have been one of their players that we would have earmarked to try and keep quiet, that way. So in terms of a forward, Val, in terms of a back, Bree, Angie, you can take your pick, Geraldine, and then obviously, like I said, Juliet in the middle of the park. But I don't know now that you posed that question to me. But there would have been any number of them, and like I said, depend what reason you needed them. If it was for cracking the dressing room, I'd say breach.
Oh, without doubt. 100%. My one, I probably would have said Valerie, just because the amount of key scores she got in finals, and not only then would you be having her for your team, but you'd be taking her out of the Cork team as well. So maybe giving it a good chance to get the win there. But 2010 came, and obviously quarter-final stage, Tyrone knocked Cork out, and you obviously are playing Monaghan in that game. This now is two teams that have lost to Cork in finals in years gone by. Then you beat Monaghan, and on the same weekend, Tyrone take Cork out. And what was it like when you heard that Cork are gone?
This sounds ridiculous. We were relieved, but it's funny. Like, a part of us, we were nearly geared up to meet them in the final again, or that's who we. Not that you'd be geared up for a final, and that would be something you'd discuss. You'd be. But maybe we just imagined that it would be Cork that we would come up against again. Look, they had a few players away that year. I think Angela Walsh was away that year, and they were probably. Or was she injured? I think they were struggling with maybe one or two players. But we were surprised Tyrone beat them, I suppose. But it's funny you talk about Monaghan, because we had beat Monaghan in the All-Ireland semi-final in 2009 when we got through to the final to beat Cork. And, the Monaghan girls were nearly like, go beat them, because that's how they felt. They just wanted them beaten as well at that stage. We had a really tough battle with Monaghan in that semi-final. But after the final whistle and we'd beaten them, they were like, just go do the job now. And we didn't, unfortunately. But look, we were surprised. I think everyone was, but at the same time, it probably didn't have the same Cork team feel about it as it had in previous years. They've been on the road a long time at that stage, and I think a few of them maybe had taken a break. I think there were a few injuries and that. So, look, as soon as Tyrone beat them, we were just getting focused then on who the opponent was. We didn't, at that stage, spend much time worrying about it or thinking about it, to be honest.
Yeah, but obviously you still had to do your own job, and you did. You took out Monaghan in the quarterfinal, a super Monaghan team, and then beat Laois in the semi-final as well to get through to the All-Ireland final to play Tyrone. And obviously, I haven't mentioned it, but you were captain that year. Again, you'd upgraded now to the point where you were captain. You'd gone from 04 being someone who, in your own words, was someone who wasn't fully aware of how significant a position you were in. Now, 2010, you're in the most significant position that a player can be in on the team. And how was that? How did that evolution come about? And then how did you handle, I suppose, the responsibility of being captain?
Well, funny, because in 2010, I'd say that was my fourth season being captain. After the 2004 loss, Dublin would have had a big turnover of players. The management team would have gone. So there was huge turnover. And we went through some really hard years. Like 2005, we were barely fielding. We were travelling to games with 15 players. I remember one day a girl had to go off as a blood sub, and we had nobody to replace her. That's how bad it was. After that whole transition, I suppose, from 2004 to 2005, we would have struggled with management teams and that. So I suppose a few of us had to stand up. And it's also funny, in adversity, how a team can get much stronger in terms of the core group that were there. We would have recognised that we were all putting in an awful lot of work, and not in great conditions, to be honest. It was tough. It was tough going. It was a huge commitment. And like I said, we were struggling to get pitches. We were struggling to field teams nearly, so it was tough. And I I suppose things started to change. There's some great people, I suppose, in the Dublin County Board as well. And, things started changing. So in 2006, I think it was, when Jerry came in, I funnily enough, had probably become one of the leaders on the team, in terms of there would have been a group of us who'd been trying to push it on. And Jerry made me captain then. And but like I just said to you, like as soon as I started, the longer I was in it, the more and more committed I was, the more I was fully immersed in it. So like I said, I'd been captain from 2006, so come 2010 I was fairly comfortable in that role anyway. And probably it didn't affect me one way or the other going into the All-Ireland final. Like I said, I was quite comfortable in the role and what I was doing. So I probably didn't think too much about the fact that I was captain, or how significant it was, or even how significant the game was at the time. We were preparing for an All-Ireland. We weren't preparing for Dublin's first All-Ireland, so it's only in retrospect, I think, you think of some of that stuff.
Yeah, man. And in the game itself, though, like, you were fantastic, and it really seemed like you were ready to win that All-Ireland. Like that, as a team, your time had come. Like, you're looking at players there that had been there for years, the likes of Clean O'Connor, Lindsay Davy and Sinead Ahern in the forwards, yourself at midfield, and Eve McAvoy. And like, you're looking at that, it just felt like it was your time. Sinead Ahern was amazing on the day, 2-7 from her, and you just won the game 3-16 to 9 points.
Yeah.
Like that's a washout. Like that's quite a comfortable victory. Did it hit you after the game? At that point, you were talking about how it didn't hit you that you were going for a first All-Ireland, but did it hit you in the aftermath of the game that you were going to be the first ever
No,
from Dublin
no,
to
definitely
lift?
not. No, it didn't hit me then. And like, you talk about stuff that you'd like to change. And I'm not sure who said it. It was one of the men this year, I think it was. Oh, geez, I can't remember who it was. I was listening to talking, but they were saying, it'll come to me in a minute, about the fact that, they had done it, and oh God, why can't I think of who it was? Anyway, I think that it would be one thing I would change. I would try and be more in the moment, because I don't think I really was in the moment. In terms of, I didn't fully get it, because it was such a relief, maybe, or you're kind of, as captain, you're going up to do your speech, and then I've probably taken some pictures and that while the girls were in the changing room. So I probably felt I missed a little bit, and I probably wasn't in the moment enough, because people always think, was it the best thing? Was it the best part of your career? And I'm like, no, like not even close. It wouldn't have been my, now looking back on it, it's a great memory to have. And I'm so proud that we were there and that we were the first team and I was the first captain. But certainly at the time, no, it wasn't. I probably wasn't in the moment enough,
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I have here the trophy lift. I mean,
oh, Christ.
You look fairly in the moment there.
Oh, well, yeah, I think, you're lifting the cup in front of your teammates. Like it was don't get me wrong, I'm probably underselling it, but I certainly didn't get the significance, or, like, it was amazing. Don't get me wrong. And I was so relieved and I was so happy, and, we had a fantastic day. But I know it sounds like I'm saying it wasn't. Of course it was, but I don't think any of the being the first captain or the first Dublin All-Ireland, none of that was on my mind at all.
Yeah, no, I do get what you mean with it. Like, I mean, it can be easy to be wrapped up in just wanting the victory and not actually enjoying it when it's done. I mean, we've seen how many other players down through the years, even if you want to stick with Dublin, like Stephen Cluxon, what slots over the free to win the first All-Ireland for Dublin in 16 years and runs down the tunnel to get away from everybody.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I feel like he regretted it, because then he comes back and he's captain then for the next All-Ireland final. I think that, if I'm being honest, I think that was a little bit of like, I think he wanted to put that right.
Yeah.
The next time he got a chance with it. Another thing that you got right that year was your own personal performances. Obviously, you were named an All-Star in 2010, up there on the podium with the best in the country. I mean, that's a perfect way to wrap up the year as well. How did it feel to be nominated and then receive an All-Star award?
Yeah, look, great. Look, and I think actually I said it on the night, which maybe it wasn't but like it wasn't the accolade, that the important one for me that year. I was just delighted with the All-Ireland and winning it with Dublin, and looking All-Star is a lovely thing to get, but more often than not, I think you could dispute maybe, probably I hadn't felt I had as good a season that year maybe as I had in 2009 or even 2000 and there was a year I was playing centre back, so it's funny. And look, it was absolutely lovely to get it, and it's lovely to be recognised, but it certainly wasn't to be honest, you're saying that now, I'd nearly forgotten it was 2010. I got my All-Star, like 2010 for me is just the year we won the All-Ireland. The All-Star was a lovely addition, but it wasn't. And don't get me wrong, they're great nights, and it's lovely to be nominated and to be recognised. But 2010 for me, all I remember is that we won the All-Ireland, to be honest.
No, that's it. I get what you mean. It's like it's as if the All Ireland is like the main course and the All Star is like the dessert at the end.
Yeah.
It's like that type of thing that the best. It's a nice way to top it off.
And it was.
But so then, yeah, of course. And I imagine like the crack being at the All Star Awards and everything. And was there a sense of relief as well? Like, because that team had been looking for an All Ireland.
Oh yeah, 100%. Which again, I suppose is a funny emotion, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just not something you really hear people talking about. But definitely there was relief. There were girls who'd been there an awful long time, and again, we would have lost a few very experienced senior players after 2010, because I think they felt when they won their All Ireland they were done. They've been going a long time. The likes of bangers, Maria Kavanagh and players like that. Mary Nevin. Oh no, Mary stayed on for another year actually, but we would have lost a few, because like that they put so much into it, and they were happy with their All Ireland. And look, it's a lovely way to go out, and it's something that you realise as well. A lot of people don't go out when they're at the top of that wave, because at the top of the wave, you're really enjoying it, and it's a great place to be, and it's very hard to walk away from it. And sometimes you stay, and more often than not, that wave is going to come back down. But so for the girls who left, then I'm sure it's a lovely way to finish your career, like. Not like 2014, what we went out and did against Cork, because that would have been my last game for Dublin, which was a very different way to bow out, but so we would have lost a lot of them then, but a lot of them would have been on the road a long time at that stage.
Yeah, well, like you're right, and that unfortunately is the next part I'm going to talk about. Is so 2012, 2013, 2014, he's picked up the Leinster Championships again. 2011, lost the All Ireland. 2012, 2013, 2014, picked up the Leinsters again. Gregory McGonigal at the helm now. Made that All Ireland final against Cork. And I think of all the years, I remember the point I was making about a team being able to reel someone in. Of all the years, that's the most obvious example. That must have been one tough final to lose.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever watched that game back fully. I still can't believe that we were 11 points up. I think we were 11 points up with maybe 10, 15 minutes to go. And I just remember in the middle of the park, and I've never felt
6 up with 15 minutes left.
Yeah. And I just remember in the middle of the park, they pinned us in on kickouts, and we were really, really struggling to win kickouts, and then we won a couple of kickouts out the wing, and then we turned it over really easy. And it was like, I just felt like I've never felt Croke Park as big. It was like we couldn't communicate with each other. We literally just folded. It was bizarre. I didn't have a particularly good game that day either, which is, you never reflect well then, I suppose, when you feel like you didn't do what you could have done. But I just remember feeling really at sea in the middle of the park for the last 10 minutes. The game just got away from us, and how much of that is down to us and how much of that is down to Cork. There's that whole muddied water again when it came to our battles with Cork, but that one was a really, really hard one to take. And it's funny now that I'm not playing, and you'd be going watching different games. I cannot imagine what we put our families through having to watch that, because now being a spectator, yourself how you can get very caught up in a match, but I cannot imagine how they felt watching it. I'm sure it was a tough watch, but look, a disappointing end, but like I said, I think very few people get to go out on the crest of that wave.
Well, that's it. And so that was the end of your time playing with Dublin. How did that decision come about? Like, did you know you were going to walk away at the end of 2014, or was it in the winter of 2014 that you decided to walk, or what kind of contributed to that decision?
No, I had actually, I had walked away in 2012 actually. I had stopped and was persuaded to go back into the panel, and then was actually dropped from the panel in 2012. So in 2013, I was asked to go back to the panel, and it was a really hard decision. But I kind of wanted to go back and finish on my own terms maybe again. And so even at the end of 2013, I was kind of gone. And then Gregory came on board and I met him, and, you know, really, really great fella. And he had Davy Burke involved with him as well. And I really enjoyed the year with the two of them, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed working with Davy. He would have done a lot with us in the back line, the current Roscommon manager. But I really enjoyed it, and I was glad I went back. So no, it was an easy decision. Like, I was 35, I think, in that All Ireland final, and it's funny because I was starting to feel it, and yeah, I didn't feel, I suppose, because I'd had that year break. You know, when you're coming back at 33, 34, trying to get fit after a year out, it's a lot tougher than doing it in your 20s. And maybe the desire was gone out of me a little bit as well at that stage. And yeah, no, so it was an easy decision at the end of 2014. You know, I think, you know, when you've checked out in your head, like there was, and look, at 35, I'm not sure they would have wanted me back anyway, you know. So yeah, no, I was done. It was a very easy decision for me after. Yeah.
Good stuff. On your own terms, it's the way everybody wants to go. So when you were wrapping it up, when you look back on it now, what's kind of your fondest or funniest memory playing for Dublin as well? Fondest and then funniest.
Fondest memory. My fondest memories are probably our training sessions, our summer training sessions, you know, at the end of the summer coming up to the All Ireland, probably in 2009, but more specifically in 2010. We put in some really, really hard sessions, and just the team bond and the driving each other on. And I just loved the train. And Martin Kennedy actually had come on board in 2010, and he really upped everything another level, you know. And I just absolutely loved the train. And look, my fondest memories are the girls. And I think what we, you know, playing with them, socializing with them, the changing room, the banter, you know, that way. Like, there were some great characters, like Mary Nevin, a lot of very witty, intelligent people, Lindsay, Pete, like, you know, really, really funny people, and lots of funny memories, but nearly too many to narrow it down to one particular one, you know. But and some of the memories that are funny for the wrong reasons, like in that season 2006 or 5 when we were struggling with management teams and players. Like, some of the stuff that happened, like, it wasn't funny, but we howled laughing because it was so ridiculous, you know. So all of it, I suppose, comes back to the people that you're involved with. Like, I loved the football and I loved training hard, but I suppose all of it comes back to the people that you played with and the characters, and, you know, just how important they were at the time. Like, it's amazing when you move on, and, you know, you mightn't see them from one end of the year to the other. You know, I try really hard to keep in touch. I'm brutal. So, you know, a lot of people are busy in life, but like, the bond that you had with them at the time, and, you know, still anytime you'd see them, it'd be just so nice to chat. And I suppose that's what anybody says when they've been involved in a team like that, and particularly when you've worked hard and got some success, there's very strong bonds there, you know. So yeah, the people would be my fondest and funniest memories, more than any particular game or winning the All Ireland.
Well said. Yeah, very well said. And then you've gone into punditry and everything after your career. Was that something that you anticipated?
No, not at all, actually. It's funny, I suppose. When I was finished, or when we weren't making All Ireland, you know, you might have got the call to maybe do the radio, which is lovely to do, and maybe some co-commentary or a little bit of analysis. And I suppose I would have done that a little bit, and then I got asked to do a couple of the men's games. And look, I love the co-commentary. Look, I love watching football, and, you know, it's not something that I went after, but I love it. I've been very lucky with the opportunities, I suppose, that have presented themselves to me. Probably getting more and more into it, you know, the more you do. Like, exactly when I started playing, the more you do, the more you go after it, or the more you just enjoy doing it and want to do a good job, I suppose. But look, it's not something, I'm a teacher, it's not like anything I'm looking to make a career out of, I suppose, but I really enjoy it. And I was very lucky, I suppose, during COVID, when matches were closed down a little bit, and, you know, to get into some of those games. Like, I really appreciated that. Again, I was just very, very lucky. But yeah, look, I really enjoy it. Who doesn't enjoy going watching football, and getting to talk about it? But yeah, no, not something I went after.
Yeah, without doubt. Yeah, no, it's one of those things. I'm hoping to get into it. I'm making my way into it, but yeah, no, and is it true as well? Because I heard Cora Staunton talking about it, and she said they don't actually, they don't really give you that much training for it. It's just saying you kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, look, the people that
Because that's mad. I would have assumed that you would have been kind of given
now I did get
things to do.
at the start, I would have done a weekend where it was kind of a women in media kind of thing, which gave you some basic stuff. But no, but I suppose the people that you're working with, like, some of them are just super, and they'd be very helpful, and they'd be very encouraging. And if you were to ask them for any tips or that, they'd be very forthcoming and helpful. But yeah, no training as such, or no.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's for anybody who thinks that media is all scripted. It definitely is not.
No,
And
no,
to speak as someone who's done a little bit myself, it's definitely not. But yeah, no, well said. Denise, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
no problem. The very best luck with everything now, Seamus.
Thank you.